When the video started circulating, I was in the kitchen, hunched over a battered work table cluttered with wood shavings, glue pots, and pieces of a half-shaped violin. I heard the pinging of notifications from my phone before I knew something was wrong. My cousin Lucia's laughter rang out from the living room, shrill and merciless. My heart thumped heavy in my chest as I wiped my hands on my jeans and went to see what was happening. On her mobile, my face stared back, awkward and earnest, voice cracking as I tried to explain in a student interview why I wanted to build the most beautiful violins in Spain. It was from a local TV spot outside my father's mechanic's shop, the day I insisted on talking about tonewood and arching while the local festival swirled around behind me. Somebody, probably Raul from down the street, always with a cruel eye, had clipped the most embarrassing 2 minutes and added scrolling comments. Una lutia en carabanchel. Que flipada, if you want to end up hungry just do like her, better stick to fixing mopeds lol. By midday, people on my feed were resharing it under #La Violinista Perdida. Even strangers from the far edges of the city chimed in to mock my accent, the glue stains under my fingernails, the way I tripped on words like asterisk soundpost and ebony. Online, I became a local punchline in the blink of an eye, and the people around me, my own blood, joined in the joke. That same evening, Abuela gave her verdict over a dinner of salt cod and peppers. You could have been a teacher. Something sensible for women, not these toys for rich foreigners. What work is there for that here? Her voice, always certain, cut at me. Papa picked absently at the bones on his plate, saying nothing. He never looked up. Lucia scrolled through her phone, snorting. I have an order, I lied. Somebody's coming tomorrow. They didn't believe me. There was nothing to believe, but I had to pretend. I spent that night staring at the unfinished violin on my bench, running my thumb over the still raw maple ribs. Each curve was my own act of defiance, carved long after the rest of the household was asleep. Upstairs, Lucia and her friends sent each other voice messages crammed with giggles, and when I heard my own name, a pulse of fear ran through my gut so sharp I had to bite my tongue to keep from crying out. In the months that followed, things grew no easier. Strangers sometimes stopped me in the street, smiling slyly just to see if my eyes would flicker with shame. In the bakery, the old men tapped on the counter and asked when I'd be world famous. In the metro, young girls started humming my interview clip as I boarded, barely hiding their amusement. At home, Papa's new apprentice, Diego, was already learning engines faster than Papa's old hands could show him. They muttered about me, tools in hand, thinking I was out of earshot. She's clever, she, but for this barrio, dreamers don't last here. I hid my progress, working late into the night on makeshift benches in cellars and spare rooms. I scoured the city for offcuts and sawdust, for discarded maple and spruce, sometimes getting splinters for hours just to claim tiny, workable pieces. Some nights in the privacy of my room, surrounded by pieces of unfinished violins, I allowed myself a few tears. But most nights I let the fear turn to something else, something like stubbornness. I replicated the old patterns by candlelight, copied from dog-eared pages stolen from library books and yellowed printouts mailed from Cremona. If nobody believed, I would make them listen. Near the end of every week, I went to the conservatory at Retiro Park, standing quietly as the seasoned musicians finished rehearsals, cradling their battered instruments. When I managed to corner one, I always asked the same, do you ever need repairs? Mostly they brushed past me. On rare occasions, a kindly viola player let me change a string or reset a bridge. I never blamed them. Who entrusts handmade centuries-old wood to a girl mocked by her own neighborhood, whose name now conjured up only laughter? The years dragged on. I took on odd jobs for luthiers, learning real restoration skills, never under my own name. I paid rent on a cold, fifth-floor walk-up north of Seoul, the kind of flat where you could see your breath in winter. I ate crusty bread and watery lentil soup. I crafted and I waited. Every time I finished an instrument, a mandolin, a viola, a guitar, I played it myself left-handed just to hear the tone bloom. Nobody else would, so I became my own audience. Fear lingered everywhere, but I refused to give in completely. I stopped checking social media. I muted group chats. Each holiday, family sent fewer invitations, and the ones that did come arrived out of obligation, thick with pity. I accepted the new distance, hollow though it felt, and laced up my boots each morning as if building myself up from the ground. One January, after 4 silent years, I slipped into a violin exhibit by chance, clutching a makeshift case that protected the instrument I'd poured everything into, a prized piece with deep, glowing ribs and a top that shimmered in the low light. Within the gallery, owners and collectors hovered by their stands, but something about my creation, lean, elegant, somehow both classic and wild, caught the eye of Maestro Garcia, a famed soloist from Barcelona. He called me over, his gaze searching but not mocking. "Have you apprenticed in Italy?" he asked, fingers tracing the scroll. I shook my head, bracing for dismissal, but he only smiled faintly, turning the violin in the light. "It's unorthodox, almost stubborn." He plucked a note and the sound, rich and humming, filled the room. Patrons turned. I felt a jolt of fear, thinking I'd embarrass myself again, but Garcia nodded once, approving. "You've made something rare," he said. "Will you sell it to me?" My tongue caught, words stuck. I nodded. He took my business card, plain as a paper scrap. "We should talk more. We need more of your kind." He bought the violin full price and then some. The sum looked impossible in my trembling hand. It paid my back rent, covered new tools, kept soup in my pot. Garcia recommended other musicians. Those musicians brought still others. Little by little, the whispers in my circles grew warmer. The orders started as repairs, then full builds. Each instrument left my hands with a fingerprint, a tiny emblem burned discreetly into the heel, a phoenix rising. Still, I didn't return to Carabanchel. Something held me back, the memory of kitchen laughter and hostile glances refusing to fade. I thought if I could work it was enough, but Madrid is a stubborn city. Its truths snaked their way home eventually. Nearly 6 years passed before I heard from Lucía. She called out of the blue, voice tensed with anxiety and some attempt at formality. "Carmen, there's a wedding, my brother's wedding. Everyone will be there. People keep asking about you, and there's something." She trailed off, struggling. "The groom's cousin is in an orchestra from Vienna. She saw your name on a program." Is that you?" I swallowed, my hand trembled as I held the phone close. "Yes, that's me." Lucía didn't apologize, but she paused for a long time. "Can you come, at least for dinner? Bring an instrument if you like. People are curious." I agreed, not because I was ready, but because I wanted to stand in my street to see if the ground would hold beneath me now. The day of the wedding, the colors of Madrid seemed brighter and sharper than I remembered. The block was a bustle of white ribbons, old women sprinkling rice over the thresholds, kids tearing down passageways in rented suits. I wore a navy shift and woolen coat and carried a violin in a battered, hand-stitched case, thrumming with nerves as I walked into the family apartment. Inside, the air smelled of roast lamb and lemon polish, voices echoing off the tile. Abuela moved slowly now, but her eyes were the same, piercing, dark as black coffee. She eyed the case at my side, her face unreadable. The gathering felt thick with tension, like electric charge before a storm. People nudged, whispering. I heard my name at least 5 times in the first hour. Lucía appeared at my elbow after much too long, cheeks flushed. "We saved you a seat," she said. "Everyone wants you to play later." I spent dinner hemmed in between old neighbors, Papa across the table, watching me as though seeing a ghost. Diego grinned shyly from the seat beside him, a man now hands still grease-stained. I tried to smile, picking pieces of lamb I could barely taste. All conversation orbited the same subject: jobs, money, work. At intervals, people congratulated me as if it were an obligation, their smiles flickering on and off. After dessert, Abuela banged on the table with her cane. "Let's see this famous violin, Hijita. We should know what kept you away so long." For the first time, there was something different in her voice, not derision, but test. Lucía grinned nervously. Papa turned his fork over and over, silent. I put the case on the table. My hands shook as I unsnapped the latches. The room grew quiet, the old central heating ticking behind the silence. As I cradled the violin, fingers light on the varnished wood, a hush settled, curiosity and something else, almost like hope. The groom's cousin, the orchestra musician, Agnieszka, moved closer, her gaze intent, and she asked gently in Spanish with a Polish lilt, "May I play?" I handed her the violin, chest tight with terror. She lifted it and tuned, fingertip brushing my phoenix emblem. Then she played just the opening bars of Bach's partita in D minor, clear and resonant, each note blooming through the crowded room. The sound filled the air, warm, rich, powerful, every subtlety of tone ringing through the apartment until even the clatter from the street seemed to pause and listen. Agnieszka smiled mid-play, her face alive with real admiration. This is remarkable. It sings. It is not like anything I have ever played. How did you make this?" Her words drilled right through the old jokes, the doubts collected over the years. People started to whisper, then to murmur in real appreciation. Even Abuela leaned forward. Diego, stunned, shook his head in silent amazement. The other musicians in the crowd pressed in, eyes alight with questions. Lucia finally said quietly, "I didn't know." Papa, silent for so much of my life, stood and walked over. His hands, rough and familiar, hovered near the instrument. He met my gaze, voice barely above a whisper. "You did this?" "Yes, Papa, every part, every inch." He nodded slowly, his face crumbling with pride and sadness. "Forgive me, I didn't understand, I see it now." As the party shifted to dancing and celebration, people came to me, asking for stories, eager now to hear my journey. Some wanted violins for their children, some asked about famous clients, others just wanted to touch the instrument and thank me for not giving up. The pride was real this time, and it swelled in my chest, a balm over old wounds. Abuela beckoned me over as the night wound down. She rested a fragile hand on my arm. "Not ridiculous," she whispered. "You are stubborn, yes, but you are my granddaughter. Our stubbornness is our treasure." As I stepped out onto the street in the cool Madrid night, the strains of music from the apartment drifted down, and I realized the hurt had turned into something else, something like relief, and then, as I walked, something like peace. Fear would always be there, flickering deep inside, but it would never keep me from my work nor from my home. A violin I'd made, my violin, still sang behind me, the sound threading into the city I'd tried so hard to leave. And this time I knew I belonged.